All right, Eric, got to get you right out of the jump. Is this the first time you've ever done an opening day not in the United States?
I guess that's true, although we had opening day one year in Puerto Rico.
Oh.
Against the Toronto Blue Jays. It was Alex Rodriguez's first year, which would have made it 2001, and it was a terrible game. The Rangers played really poorly. Alex actually slipped and fell down on a ground ball, and the Rangers lost the game by the score of 8-1. And rubbing salt in the wounds that day, they lost to Esteban Loaiza, a guy who they had traded. And that was a bitter pill.
That's incredible recall, Eric. That was
that was special. That was a very different sort of situation. So that one kind of stood out in my mind.
Okay, so is that one of the worst opening days that you've called?
One of the worst opening days, and just very distinctive because of it happening in Puerto Rico and all of the hoopla surrounding it.
Were the Puerto Ricans really fired up to have a game in town and all that? What was that like?
They were excited, yeah. And back then we had a bunch of players from Puerto Rico, Juan Gonzalez and Pudge, of course. And so it was pretty exciting being there. The stadium left a lot to be desired in terms of working conditions, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
What's your favorite opening day? A positive memory?
Well, my very first one, 1979, at Tiger Stadium in Detroit, first Major League game that I did. Fergie Jenkins pitched a complete game and beat the Tigers 8-2. And it was probably played in about 2.5 hours the way that Fergie pitched. And that was important because it was really cold that day.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
And we were in the open air.
The open air. That's what I was going to say, that open air press box. So, okay, if you had a choice, so Eric, would you always do open air? I mean, is that something you kind of enjoy?
Yeah, I've gotten past the point now where I have to have it open. Right now, I'm a little more interested in my health.
Right.
So if it's really cold somewhere or if it's raining, I'm going to close the windows. Back in the day, we never did, and Mark Holtz would never allow the windows to be closed. I remember days in Chicago that were just awful, doing a doubleheader there one night.
Oh, my goodness.
A night doubleheader, twilight doubleheader, after which we were both sick for about a week. But Holtzy insisted on having the windows open.
I remember the first time I ever met you, and this is many years ago. I met Jared up there, and the first thing you did, it was one of those days, it was like a pizza oven day. It was hot. And you walked in and you kicked off your sandals like you were Jimmy Buffett doing a show, and you opened those windows and said, "Nice to meet you, Brian." And I thought, about time for me to leave out of this place. That heat came blowing in there.
Yeah, we used to keep the windows closed until about 5 minutes before the game so that we could keep it as cool as the air conditioning could get it, which wasn't that cool. Normally about the coolest it ever was in that booth on a hot summer day was 77 or 78. And then we'd open the windows shortly before the game started, and I always had a booth thermometer, and we would just watch it climb into the 90s over the course of the first inning or two.
Oh, all right. Let me ask you this though, Eric, as well. Is there something that never gets old about opening day for you? Is it always just something, a different journey? Is it the excitement of that, or is it like, man, I've done these for a lot. It's just kind of what it is.
No, the excitement is, all of the waiting that you've had in the off season, and it takes me back to when I was a kid, in New York. And waiting for the opener to start. It was part of like the official beginning of spring, and having a baseball game and hoping that they'd be able to play the game, that it wouldn't get rained out and that the conditions wouldn't be too bad. One year I actually pretended to be sick because it was the Yankees opening day, and the game wound up getting rained out. So I completely wasted a fake sick day, and then the next day, my mother wasn't letting me stay home from school again when they played it the next day, so I completely wasted an opening day opportunity.
Is there a good buzz in Toronto outside coming into the stadium and all that? Are they into opening day like we are?
They're into it this year, I'll tell you that. They are really excited. This Blue Jay team, almost making the playoffs last year, making a lot of noise, adding some key pieces this year. In particular, the guy who's going to pitch tomorrow, Kevin Gossman. They fully expect to make a serious run, and most of the computer models and most of the so-called experts seem to be picking the Blue Jays to win the division, and a lot of people are picking them to go all the way and win the World Series. So, yeah, fans in Toronto are really psyched, and I have a feeling that the atmosphere in here may not be that different from when we were here for the playoffs in 2015 and 2016, and that was crazy.
Yeah, those were intense series indeed. So nobody's obviously picking the Rangers to even win the division, but Eric, for the first time in years, they've made a huge move towards winning with their pocketbook. How much better do you think this team is than the one you last called last year?
They're a lot better. I hope they're maybe 20 wins better, so they can win 80-something and push 500, maybe even push for a wild card playoff spot. Who knows? That would be a giant leap. But considering the changes that they've made with guys like Seager and Simeon and John Gray and Cole Calhoun, maybe that's not out of the question. I don't know. But it's just nice to know that every day you're going to look down there and you're going to see Marcus Simeon and Corey Seager hitting back-to-back in the first inning. And that puts a smile on my face.
Eric, is there a position group that we are going to find out about is better than maybe what we were thinking going into the season as you get a bigger sample size, 20, 25 games or whatever? Is there a position group that we're going to kind of look at and say, they're much better than what we thought going in?
Well, it's going to take more than the first month of the season, but hopefully it's the starting rotation. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that's keeping most people from picking the Rangers to even have a winning season. You look at the rotation, you got John Gray as your first guy, Martin Perez, the only other veteran starter in the rotation, and then you're basically looking at three totally unproven guys, Dane Dunning, who's had one good big league season, Taylor Hearn, who's basically had a full big league season but about a half of a good one, and Spencer Howard, who's been totally unsuccessful in his brief big league career. You're counting on those guys in your 3, 4, and 5 spots. So, if the Rangers are just average in their starting rotation, they're going to do really well this year because of all the runs they're going to score. And I would imagine that that's the area where you hope that they'll be a lot better than people are expecting.
Okay, Eric, what if around mid-season they are, on pace for 80-some wins? They're a 500 club. How good would Jack Leiter have to be at that point to get a call up in the second half of the season? Is that totally off the table, or?
I don't think so. I don't think it's off the table at all. It all depends on how he does. And, the way they're evaluating players now probably has nothing to do with what his one-loss record is there or even what his ERA is there. They're going to be looking at his command of specific pitches. They're going to be looking at his spin rates and his extension and how they think that would play. They're going to look at the way the intangibles play out is probably the biggest thing. Is he ready mentally and emotionally to come to the big leagues, and have all that pressure thrust on him? Is that the best thing for him and his career, considering that he's a guy the Rangers certainly plan to build their club around?